Hey everybody, welcome back to The Stuff of Legend. My name is D-Lo and I've got another video for you guys. But before we get started, I would encourage you guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and make sure to turn on notifications as well. That way you guys can be a part of these live streams and be alerted every time I go live or upload a new video. So now let's get to the topic of the day. Today, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man is officially out of the MCU, or is he? Is he officially, and is there a way that he can still be in the MCU? It's not even a theory. I'm going to show you guys the facts here. So I'm going to show you guys what we're talking about as far as what we know to be true and what can be true factually, not theoretically, factually. So let's get into this. This is going to be a fun one. So, hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and I wanted to show you guys, I saw some news going around the internet the last few days. Most of these news came out like at least 4 days ago. I just didn't have a chance to get this video out because I was working on a bunch of stuff for my merch store, which I now have 40 designs up online. Tons of Power Rangers content, but also the Stuff of Legend content. So if you want to get a Stuff of Legend shirt, fan casting summit type shirt, I've got a lot of fun things on there. So if you guys want to support the channel, that's another way you could do that. Also be sure to like, share, subscribe. So let's not delay any further. Let's go ahead and jump on in. So first up, I wanted to show you guys some articles here that were from, Variety, and then there's also one by IndieWire. I'm going to go ahead and read the IndieWire one first, and then we'll get into this one, okay? So first, let's go ahead and I'll switch my screen. Sorry about that. Let's switch the screen right here. Okay, got it now. All right, so from IndieWire, we're seeing here, Russo brothers react to Spider-Man leaving the MCU, not so surprised or devastated. For those of you guys who aren't caught up yet, Disney and Sony, the two companies that are involved with the MCU and Spider-Man, have had a falling out of some sort. We're not entirely sure exactly what it is, but we know for a fact it involves money and business and having control of the property rights to the character, which Sony does. Rightfully, they purchased that from Marvel back in the 90s when they were going bankrupt. But now we've had Spider-Man. We love Tom Holland in the MCU. He's been such a wonderful part of it. The long and short of it is that business is business, and Sony doesn't want to let go of the rights and doesn't have to let go of the rights, and Marvel basically said, give us all the rights or we don't want to play anymore. And that's kind of what happened. So it's much more, that's a massive oversimplification. Nevertheless, here's what we got. Anthony and Joe Russo introduced Tom Holland's Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe over 3 years ago in Captain America Civil War, so it was only a matter of time before the filmmakers duo broke their silence on the character exiting the MCU. Holland, meaning Spider-Man, superhero, will no longer star in MCU films. This is important, guys. MCU films means the canon that Marvel has created from Iron Man 1 in 2008 to Far From Home, which was a Sony film that was collaborative with Marvel, but paid for by Sony entirely. And so that entire continuity, especially leading up to Infinity War, Endgame, and then now with Far From Home, these are MCU continuity films. Holland will no longer star in the MCU films after Disney and Sony failed to come to an agreement on new terms to share the character. The news hit just as Spider-Man Far From Home crossed the $1 billion mark at the worldwide box office. That's about $3 to $2 billion more than the next most lucrative Spider-Man film has made so far, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it landed somewhere around 1.1 or 1.2. But it says the Russo brothers reacted to the Disney-Sony split in the recent interview with the Daily Beast. So here we go. Here's the interview. Here's the meat, okay? So if you guys are checking it out, this is what we're looking at. It says, we were extremely passionate about it. This is something we wanted to happen and fought a long time internally at Marvel to make happen. Anthony said of bringing Holland's Spider-Man into the fold. So Anthony Russo is basically saying, look, we love Spider-Man. We're really passionate about having him in the MCU. We worked really hard to make it happen. It wasn't easy. And then he says here, again, Joe says it wasn't easy. So then Kevin Feige went through a lot. There was a lot of ups and downs, and he kept walking into our office, and we'd go, look, we've got to do it with Sony. And he'd say, and Kevin would go, okay, I'll figure it out. And he'd walk back into his office, and He was looking for the way out. He wanted to open the door and he wanted to open the office door and have us go, we figured it out. We don't need Spider-Man in our stories because it's a lot of work to get two major corporations to play nice with each other. And the fact that it happened at all, we should be dancing and celebrating that we got a little bit of time out of it. So this is a really interesting statement here. This shows that there was a little bit of tension, a little bit of struggle, at least the work that's involved in involving Spider-Man into the MCU and the coordination that had to happen so that they don't cross over storylines that could be built by either company. That's a lot of work, a lot of planning, and you have to play by both person's goals for that. It's like two separate parents. It's like a divorced family that is trying to raise a kid, but they don't really hang out, and they're just like, hey, I want my kid to be, a baseball star, and the other one's like, you know what? No, I want him to go into law, and he needs to go to practice, but he also needs to study, and you can't do both. It's like a lot of work to try to balance those two schedules. So that's a quick analogy for you guys. But now it says the struggle it took to get Spider-Man into the MCU was so great that the Russo brothers are not as heartbroken over the Disney-Sony split as some might think. As Anthony put it, I think that's why Joe and I are not so devastated or surprised that there has been a falling out, because it was so hard to make that happen in the first place. And this just shows that the Russo bros in their comments are showing that they're not crying themselves to sleep over the loss of Spider-Man, because it was a lot of work to integrate him into the films. And if you actually go back and rewatch the Spider-Man's existence in the MCU, almost all of them were either last-minute add-ins or they were a character that very easily could have been replaced by someone else. For instance, if you were to take basically almost any character in the Marvel Universe that is young and could use some mentorship, you could have swapped that for Spider-Man in Civil War, and it probably still would have worked. Like, you could have basically done anyone as long as it needed that kind of mentorship. It would not have followed the comic book pattern, but they were not planning to follow the comic book pattern in the first place. And this is coming from one of the biggest Spider-Man fans you probably know. I love Spider-Man. I always have. He's been the GOAT for me forever. But the fact of the matter is, like, even in Endgame, if you were to take Endgame and Infinity War and swap Spider-Man for, say, Pepper Potts, it almost would have been more impactful. It almost would have been more emotionally important, the scenes that were there, because it didn't have to be his son figure. It could have been Pepper Potts. Like, if you were to make it so that Pepper was in the rescue armor, which we know that she was in the rescue armor, but she was the one that went to space with Iron Man in Infinity War, and she was the one that had gotten dusted. It would have still wouldn't have been able to play out the entire story the exact same way. The whole thing could have played out the same storyline, except his motivation would not have been that he wouldn't want to help the Avengers. It would have been that he was just devastated from losing his family, as opposed to he has his family and doesn't want to give it up. He still would be making a sacrifice at the end by leaving, but it could have played out the same way and almost been much more impactful, because at the end, it's not even emotionally drawing really when Pepper has her moment with Iron Man. It's when Spider-Man gets his moment with Iron Man. That's when it really kind of grabs you, but it's not as impactful as I think it could have been if it was a little closer to home. And so I think they were shoehorning Spider-Man into these stories where other characters probably originally were. Because you got to keep in mind, Marvel, Kevin Feige, they think 5 and 10 years ahead. Their plans are 5 years in advance. And so when they shoehorned in Spider-Man at the very, very last second for Civil War, you know they were already planning Infinity War. They're already coming up to that point in time where we know how this story is going to play out. We know what we're building up to. They had to tweak it to add in Spider-Man. So this statement from Anthony and Joe Russo shows that it was a lot of work to try to keep Spider-Man in the MCU every single time, because now they have to find places to put him in the story. So that also says to me that I think, first of all, the MCU will be just fine if they can't keep Spider-Man in there. And we're going to get to some of these statements in a minute. I'll show you guys what the Sony guys have said and what they're saying. But we see here, let me see this. It says, as for what the future holds with Holland's Spider-Man character, the Russo bros told Variety it will most likely remain complicated. And Anthony stressed that neither brother knows how things are playing it out on an inside level. So neither brother really knows how things are playing out on an inside level means that things are playing out. They just don't have an idea of what that's going to look like just yet. It's so new. It's so fresh. They haven't had time to account for how to deal with this when they've got all this Disney Plus stuff happening and another 5, 6, 7 years of movies they're already trying to get together. I mean, a lot of these guys, and Joe and Anthony are not going to be directing for a little bit, but they still were involved with the back and forth, the conversations about what should come after this, leading into Endgame, and the 5 years after that. You know Kevin Feige's picking their brains on how should we do this? What do you think about that? This would be pretty cool if we could get this going. And so they understand a lot, but they don't understand everything. And so this is why it's going to be fun talking with you guys about these are the facts that we know, and then we'll get into other facts that can lead to further speculation about what not only could happen, might happen, or maybe should happen. So that's fun. Let's go ahead and read this last thing before we go to the next article. It was always a complicated marriage, Anthony said about the Disney-Sony partnership. We're thrilled that we got to introduce a new version of Spider-Man into the world, and we're grateful for the time that we had with the character in terms of how it moves forward. We can't comment beyond saying, not it's over, it's complicated. That right there is crucially important. So I want to just go ahead and show you guys the next article. So here's the Sony chief on the split. So this is a big long article about a bunch of stuff and blah blah blah. So I'll show you guys some of this. So it says Vince Cicero said that Sony plans to launch its own universe using the past array of Spider-Man characters. We know this already. The studio is in production on a second Venom film, a picture based on the character Morbius, and 5 or 6 TV series set in the Spider-Man world. This is what we're being told. The Sony boss bullishly expressed his beliefs that the character will do just fine outside of the MCU, pointing to the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Sony Amazon series The Boys, as evidence that Sony is fully capable of hitting the mark on the superhero front. And this is the quote here, Spider-Man was fine before the event movies, which means before the MCU, so like the Andrew Garfield and the Tobey Maguire series, which they were. Even if you didn't like them, they were very, very successful, and all of them made over $700 million, which is a massive, massive success. It says here, did better with the event movies, which means the Sony guys have always, in all these statements, they've been very cordial and very kind to Marvel and to Kevin Feige and to Disney, saying that, just praising them, just saying, look, we did fine before the MCU, but we did better with the MCU as well. That's important because it shows that these guys they're being professionals, they're being good, I guess you would call them collaborators, good coworkers, good business partners. Even after the deal has fizzled out, man, they're still praising the MCU, praising Kevin Feige. They love the fans. The fans are mutual fans of both the Sonyverse and the MCU are basically the same people. And it says, and now that we have our own universe, he will play off the other characters as well, meaning that Tom Holland will interact with Venom, will interact with Carnage, will interact with Morbius, will go into the Sonyverse just like they planned originally. Which is interesting because it's going to be a film universe centered around a hero, yet the hero is like the last one to the table. So that's pretty interesting. And it says, Vince Cicero said, I think we're pretty capable of doing what we have to do here, meaning they've got this, guys. And then it goes on here. Many have expressed the hope that Spider-Man might still remain in the MCU, with Marvel stalwart Jon Favreau commenting during his keynote conversation at the ENT and Tech Summit that the split is not for lack of trying, which means that supposedly, according to Jon Favreau, that there was a lot of effort to keep the deal together, but it just didn't work out. And it says here, I've been talking to everyone about it. I'm cautiously optimistic, Favreau said of the Spidey situation. I think it's a long way away, and I think the collaboration has been really strong up to this point. So I'm hopeful that there's a way for us all to play together going forward. This does not mean that it will work out that they play together. It means that he thinks that there is a strong possibility that they can find a solution in the future. And here's more to say here. Putting the web slinger aside, Vince Caro firmly stated that Sony Studios is not for sale. This proves my theory, guys. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Sony is not to blame for the split. It's Marvel. Marvel wanted 100%. They wanted control over all of Sony's Spider-Man assets, all the Marvel characters back in the control of Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. Unequivocally, they want to be able to veto any movie, any project, anything at all that involves Spider-Man characters. They wanted that, and they wanted that control. They didn't want to work with Sony and be able to reason with them and have to go back and forth. They just wanted to be able to say, no, we don't need you anymore, Sony. We got this covered. And Sony was just like, hey, man, we paid for these rights. Sorry, we're not for sale. Spider-Man is not for sale. And it says, despite regular press coverage to the contrary, the Sony boss also discussed the studio's decision to stay out of the streaming wars thus far in terms of the general market, a decision which he said allows Sony to be more transparent with its creators by not becoming beholden to any platform. I think this also meant that, and I don't know this to be true, guys, but basically if he's saying this, I'm thinking that becoming part of Disney Plus's agreement might have been one of the qualifiers for Marvel's portion of the agreement. They might have said, hey, we want control of all this stuff, but we'll put all your stuff on Disney Plus in its own chapter. And I think they were just saying, look, we're not going to be bought. We have our own thing going here. We like doing business the way we like doing it. We don't want you telling us what to do. And they like to have their own freedom and run things the way they always have. And so which I respect. I totally respect that. Disney needs to chill a little bit. Like, they can't literally own everything. They have to be able to work with other people that have their own free thoughts. And this coming from a massive Spider-Man fan. So then it says, yeah, we already read that part. And it says, Vince Caro said that when he first came into Sony 2017, he saw the need to make sweeping changes at the studio to keep up the rise of streaming. With the evolution of the business into the streaming world, both on the theatrical and television side, opportunities are terrific, but the organization that were in place at the time were not suited or designed to take advantage of those opportunities, he said. We were able to transition in a relatively short period of time to be representative of what the business looks like, and that's what I enjoy doing, and that's what's fun about the job. So this is going to start to take a little bit of a turn away from what we want to talk about, so I'll cut over now to what the Russos said. And we did mention this already a little bit, but it says here, I want to reiterate this part because this is important for what we're going to talk about right now. We know that Sony has said the door is closed. And this is from a different article I don't have in front of me. You guys can look this up as well. But they basically said right now the door for Spider-Man in the MCU is closed. And then we see here the Russos saying, in terms of how it moves forward, we can't comment beyond saying it's complicated. This being after the deal was already fizzled out. So we now have other opportunities. I want to go ahead and talk with you guys. We've looked at a lot of facts, so I don't want to waste a lot more time, and we've already read like 20 minutes worth of article, and this is going to get kind of heavy, but I want to just propose something, guys. Marvel does not need Sony's permission to make TV shows. And we know that the Disney Plus streaming service is putting a lot of time, money, and attention on TV series that are both live action and animated. So, if they don't need Sony to make a TV show, I'm thinking that hearing the Russo brothers say something like, it's complicated means that they're not saying that Spider-Man is completely done. They're saying that the deal with Sony for Spider-Man in the MCU is completely done. Therefore, MCU films probably are not going to be where you're going to see Spider-Man in the MCU. I do think, though, that we're going to see something along the lines of another Spider-Man TV show that will come to the Disney streaming service. I have not found anything anywhere to tell me that there is anything in the way of Kevin Feige making a Spider-Man TV show in live action now, or in animation, because they have Marvel Spider-Man, which is not a Sony. You guys see right here, I googled this. This is a 2017 TV series that is not. It's created by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Jeff Loeb, Joe Quesada. These are Marvel TV guys. They don't work for Sony. These guys are not Sony, and Sony is not involved in this project. This is all Spider-Man. They can use all this. They use Miles Morales. They can use all the Spider-Man villains they want. But Sony can also do the same thing. That's why we see Miles Morales and Peter Parker and all the Spider-Man in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is a film. But we don't see Sony making a lot of TV shows. That's something that we just either haven't seen. Maybe they do have the right to do that. Maybe they have some sort of a shared right to do it if they want to. We might be getting a Spider-Man TV series from Sony and a Spider-Man TV series from Marvel. So this is my speculation, guys. I believe that we will probably see, if Feige and the Russos and Disney want to get more of that Spider-Man action and sell more of that merchandise, because they're not trying to drop that cheddar. They're trying to make more money. They want more of that merchandising and licensing money from the toys that Spider-Man brings in. There is no greater marketable character on Earth for any franchise ever than Spider-Man. He is printing money for Disney. They're not going to let that go. So I believe that we will probably, we may or may not see this TV series get canceled. It might just keep on going, but we're going to see more Spider-Man content, probably in the Marvel What If series, voiced by someone other than Tom Holland. Or we'll see a live-action reboot in a TV series for a live-action TV series with a new actor under Marvel. Or we'll see a new animated TV series that's not What If, but it's its own thing for Spider-Man on Disney Plus with a whole new actor. And honestly, guys, I have no problem with this. Because it doesn't mean that Tom Holland's going away. We'll still get Sony-made Tom Holland Spider-Man films, which I love so far. And for the record, Kevin Feige was involved with Spider-Man and the Spider-Man films creatively, but he wasn't the one that made the film. There was a team of writers. There was a team of creative team, directors. They were all working with Marvel, but they were Sony. They were Sony contracted, Sony paid. They were working for Sony. Sony now has a blueprint with 2 films working with the MCU. They understand what the fans want now. There's been a lot of trial, a lot of error, but tons of success in the past before the MCU, and now tons more success after having worked with the MCU. They know what to do. I don't doubt that they're going to do a great job. I don't doubt that we're going to love Tom Holland just as much in the next film. The next film may not be as good as the second film. Big deal. I thought that the second Iron Man was far, far greater than Iron Man 3. I thought that, Thor, well, I guess this is an opposite view, but Thor 3 was better than Thor 2. But Thor 1 was probably almost as good as Thor 3. Thor 3 was like the best. But you find that this could be the case with Sony's Spider-Man 3 for Tom Holland. We don't know. We just don't. And so, I'm actually more optimistic about this than I think most people are. But it's because if you look at the rights of these characters, Sony owns the film right. They own the movie right. They own the right to put Spider-Man in movies, and Marvel doesn't have that. But Marvel, based on what we know from Marvel Spider-Man in the animated series, they at least can do animated. And I don't know if that crosses over into live action TV shows for Spider-Man, because if they can, they should just drop it on Disney Plus. Why on earth would they not create their own Spider-Man if Sony says, no, we don't want to do it with it, we don't want to give you everything, and Disney's like, you know what, we need everything or you walk. If they're that way and they want to just say all or nothing, they already walked. Now you do your thing. The bridge isn't necessarily burned, but if you want to do it without Sony, you can do it without Sony. Make a TV show. They're getting ready to do freaking Miss Marvel and She-Hulk. I mean, if they can do shows that are going to be as zany as that, visually, effects and all that stuff, they can certainly do Spider-Man. Why on earth couldn't they do a Spider-Man TV show? And then you can get so many more villains in that show. You can get so many more stories. And you can actually get back to a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that's more on the ground, dealing with small stuff. And you can have like layered story arcs for Peter, or for if you want to do Miles or Ben Reilly or whoever it is you want to do, you could do that. That'd be freaking awesome. I would actually greatly appreciate that. I actually really love the TV series. I like watching TV series almost more than I like watching movies. So I'm really excited for Moon Knight. I'm really excited for She-Hulk. I'm gonna wait for a trailer for Miss Marvel. I've never been a fan of Miss Marvel just because she was after the time that I was reading comics for randos, and like I was basically a mainstream comic type guy, like Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, like a lot of the big names. I didn't even read Moon Knight's comics, but I'm really excited to see his show because his character sounds interesting to me. So I don't know, I'm really pumped. And a lot of the Disney Plus stuff I expect to be really great. They've got a massive budget, and if you're gonna do a superhero TV show, I think it's got to be pretty legit. So we'll see how it goes, and let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Spider-Man will get a TV series? Do you guys think that there's a little bit more room to be optimistic given the circumstances of Marvel? Hey, Marvel has a TV show that is not involving Sony, actively present right now. You can look at the right here. What's the date today? The date is 9/9/19. Hey, that's pretty cool. And 9/15, 9/22. Tomorrow there's an episode. There's episodes coming out right now. So I think that Marvel doesn't necessarily need Sony to have Spider-Man in the MCU as long as they do it on Disney Plus as a show. I don't see anything that would withhold them from doing that, other than burning a bridge relationally with Sony. They might get really pissed that they're doing that. So I don't know. What do you think is going to happen? Do you guys like that idea? Do you guys think that, hey man, they better not do that or we'll never see Tom Holland back in the MCU, or they're going to have to reboot? We'll have two Spider-Man at once. What's that going to be like? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. And if you guys haven't already, check this out. I wanted to show you guys, before we close out, a couple of things. Whoopsies. I hope that you guys, I've got some stuff working on right here. I'll show you guys some of my designs. I've got some things. If you guys are watching right now, check this out. You guys got a little sneak peek into what's coming. But I've got a ton of cool designs for my t-shirts, mugs, sweaters, hoodies, all kinds of stuff. I went ham on these Power Rangers designs, inspired designs, and also, Help Me Dave Filoni, You're My Only Hope, Collector, Not Hoarder, Major Funkoholic, To-Do List, Eat, Cast, Sleep for fan casting, Fan of Much Fiction, The Stuff of Legend. I have a second page over here. Lots of fun designs. And if you guys haven't seen this, I put this at the very end because I know that, promotion, all that stuff. You guys may not want to see it, but I wanted to show you just in case you guys didn't know it was here. Got t-shirts for this one, $20, but a lot of the newer designs are actually on discount right now. So if you take a look at some of these guys right here, $20 for a fan casting shirt. This one's discounted, $14 for t-shirts. This is Lord Zed. Unfortunately, the actor that played him has just passed away recently, last couple days. But I was already making this design, so I was like, you know what? I think I should upload it and just see what happens. And so I've already had a couple of people reach out to me about it, and one person's already made a purchase, but $14 for the next 1 day and 21 hours. So get your merch while it's hot and while it's on sale. So that's all I wanted to say. Let me go ahead and close out of this shameless plug of my own merch. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about Spider-Man in the MCU, Spider-Man out of the MCU, and if you think that Marvel should just make the move and create another TV series for Spider-Man on Disney Plus and maybe try to work their way around it legally to get a Spider-Man, or a rebooted Spider-Man into the MCU. Let me know if you guys think that's a great idea, a terrible idea, or if you're just kerfuffled about the whole thing. I want to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please turn on notifications so you can be alerted right away when I go live next time. That way you guys will not miss a single thing. And you guys rock. Stay tuned for more right here on The Stuff of Legend.